I'm your cult boyfriend. We're talking about the Vampire Diaries today, season 3, which, yeah, was pretty incredible. A lot happened this season, so I'm going to focus on really two things that I found to be the most fascinating. First of which is a bit easier to talk about the payoff to the cliffhanger from season 2, where the ghosts of both Anna and Vicky appear in Jeremy's kitchen. The payoff to that is kind of beautiful. Kind of culminates that arc's peak culminates in an episode called Ghost World, where a bunch of ghosts come back for their unfinished business. Now, the Vampire Diaries is a maddening and dazzling postmodern show. So, what are ghosts in Kevin Williamson's postmodern teen universe? Well, what are ghosts? They are the echoes of canceled narratives. These are ghosts who have not simply unfinished business, but unfinished character arcs, unfinished narratives, unfinished emotional journeys that were promised by the show and ended before their time. Characters who did not get a chance to flourish, get a chance to adapt, get a chance to evolve, grow, or complete an arc. And that's exactly what Vicky and Anna do, and it's extremely emotional, and I think it's beautifully postmodern. I loved that so much. With this arc, they are like very dignified characters as well. I've always considered this when I analyze teen shows about storylines that get dropped or kind of ended prematurely before the true emotional peak was hit. I often think about that. And Kevin Williamson within the Vampire Diaries explored and exposed the ghosts of aborted teen drama narratives. And these ghosts get to finish their arcs. Unfinished business, unfinished arcs. Because just like they've been saying, like they're on the other side and they've been screaming the whole time, but you can't hear them. So often teen shows are haunted by the ghosts of missed opportunities, of promises that weren't kept by the narrative. Like when you introduce a character, you're making a promise to the audience. About the character. You're making a promise that this character is safe to identify with because you will grow with them. Well, sometimes that doesn't happen. And then those situations, those failed opportunities, those missed ones haunt the narrative and haunt the characters for the duration of the piece, of the show, of the project. And here, the ghosts make a lot of noise and they're able to complete character arcs. Like one of the most beautiful moments of the entire show is Anna finding her mother on the street with like the Christmas lights strewn about and embracing her and hugging her and having that real emotional moment, that real completion of an arc. It was beautiful. Um, and it goes to show just how tender and sensitive postmodern art can be. The other fascinating topic, which will take a bit longer to discuss. Strap in, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for us to talk about Klaus. Klaus. Klaus, Klaus, Klaus. You don't live in your cult boyfriend's brain, but right now, every part of it is scrambling around, trying to come up with the right words, the right way to analyze Klaus. Klaus is possibly the most perfect villain that has ever existed. He's a wonderful postmodern villain. He draws that sort of attention to himself. He says things that seem like villain cliches, like, you should thank me, like stuff like that. But he means it. Because what does Klaus do here? Klaus interferes with every single primary character in meaningful ways that challenge them to actually complete a full arc in confrontational sorts of narrative beats and emotional exercises. Every single one. Primarily Stefan. He challenges Stefan in ways that are mesmerizing to me on an analytical level. I think we should talk about the originals, right? Like, what makes Klaus so interesting? Well, everything about Klaus is interesting. By the way, pitch perfect performance from Joseph Morgan. Ian Somerhalder has been defeated. Joseph Morgan has given the best performance of the Vampire Diaries. Sorry, Ian. You got nothing on what Joseph brought to the table this season. I was stunned. Wow. Hey, the originals. I really hope you watched my other Vampire Diaries analysis videos because I don't feel like repeating all that. It's just a very, very complex and sophisticated show, especially like it's an extremely complicated postmodern work. And maybe this video series more than any other, it's kind of required of you to watch my previous videos because there's a lot of heavy lifting done in those previous videos, and I'm not going to reiterate here. A reiteration would take 20 minutes alone. These are very complicated ideas, so I'm just going to assume that you watched my other two videos. The present is a projection of the past, but who are these anomalies? Who are the originals? The originals, in a postmodern sense, are the original archetypes themselves. Cole, Elijah, Rebecca, Esther, Finn, and Laos all represent, I think, the original archetypes that postmodernism, that all forms of narrative media had dedicated themselves to deconstructing, reinterpreting, recontextualizing, reformatting, reshaping. But the originals are those original archetypes untouched. And that's why they're so alien. That's why they seem like anomalies. That's why they don't seem like the past repeating itself ad nauseum, because they are antiques. And antiques are dangerous. The ancient ways are unknown and alien to postmodern ones. Because when we are dealing with Klaus and the originals, we are not dealing with the past projecting upon the present, right? We are dealing with the genuine experiential qualities of the archetypes themselves. And those archetypal qualities, if you go back to the original, right, this is the closest we will ever get to Kevin Williamson talking about gods, because the original archetypes had divine qualities. Archetypes that powerful that have been around for so long that are still deemed as necessary have divine attributes. You can call them godlike. You can get spiritual with it if you'd like. I think that Kevin Williamson uses those more as tools to have fun with the kind of playground of postmodern thought. I think that that is why they all seem so godlike and immortal and unkillable in such a large way. And we could remain strictly postmodern with it because in postmodernism, God is a non issue. It doesn't really matter to speak on God. But according to archetypes, right, if you are the reimagined, ever repeated, everlasting archetype, then your original architecture, the original architecture of your characterization, your original archetype of which you were born from, would seem to you a sort of deity. And that's what Klaus brings to the table. He's this eternal quality of narrative. An eternal archetype of narrative. All the originals are, but Klaus is unique because Klaus is stronger than the rest, more devious than the rest, more evil than the rest. He's sexier than the rest, and he is more significant than the rest because he is the driving force of this narrative. He's a perfect villain because he perfectly occupies that role. Because he's been occupying that role since the dawn of the archetype itself. He does it so perfectly that you don't even realize that Williamson and Pleck both have mapped this out so beautifully, and L.J. Smith, let's give her credit as well. But really, this is Kevin Williamson. We're using his playbook here. You don't even realize it's been mapped out so beautifully because Klaus is literally the original villain, the original archetype. And what villains do is they antagonize the protagonist in order to help the protagonist complete their hero's journey or their romantic one or their comedic one. There are villains in every form of media, be it farce or a war picture or a tragedy, and the Vampire Diaries is all of those things in quite a few interesting ways. And Klaus is there for every single character to reach emotional Everests that they would never have been able to climb or scale uh, without him. He occupied the archetypal role of god villain so perfectly because he is the original god villain. He's like that idea of the everlasting, undying, original archetype, forced to shapeshift, grinning like a madman through the ages as he tortures and manipulates every grand design of every grand narrative that has ever been scribed. His interactions with each character pretty unique. And then they're all rather sophisticated. And with Stefan, you get a lot of sexual energy between the two of them. The dynamic between Stefan and Klaus, I think, is beautiful. Because Stefan is like the perfect, classically designed villain. But in 2010's teen drama vampiric landscape, that archetype is being redesigned um, to to fit the role, the frameworks of the new postmodern hero. That's what Stefan represents so beautifully. And that's why Klaus and him have such an interesting relationship because Klaus sees the villainy within Stefan, and Klaus spends most of this season um, nurturing that villainy, flirting openly, like romanticizing in sexual ways and also in extremely adoring ways, the cruelty, the villainy within Stefan. But Stefan is Klaus's archetype, but for a postmodern age, which in the postmodern age, characters like Stefan, mass murdering psychopaths, serial killers are the heroes. And they occupy the hero's journey so perfectly and they get the girl. And Stefan is challenged by Klaus so much because Klaus sees so much of himself in Stefan, or maybe he admires that Stefan is able to change. Because an original archetype can't change at all. Klaus's dynamic with Elena is beautiful because she's the doppelganger, she's the double narrative. She's the point in which the narrative transcends itself. She's symbolic of narrative transcendence, the catalyst for actual change, not only through deconstruction, but through recontextualization of media and of history. She is the literal projection of the past upon the present, and the viciousness of the past got lost in that translation. And Elena is a good person. And Klaus needs her blood to provide him with more of his hybrid army. That's another thing. Klaus is a hybrid. He's he's trying to transcend the limitations of his archetype. He's trying to find a new family, a new dynamic one. But he can't let go of the old. He can't let go of the old ways. He does have limitations. As an archetype, he's all powerful, but he's all alone. A beautiful moment near, right around where Klaus is defeated, where Klaus has Elena tied up and he's telling her, I think it's another one of his, you should thank me, you know. But we know that all the characters honestly should thank him for everything they're saying that they should thank him for. Should thank me, you know. Because of this, you don't actually have to make a choice between Stefan and Damon. You don't actually have to disrupt the narrative that you've transcended. Even Klaus's death is beautiful. The eye contact with Stefan. It's heartbreaking and it's electrifying. I thought Klaus crushing on Caroline was fascinating. I thought that Tyler being extremely subservient to Klaus was also a breathtaking facet to this overall narrative. Klaus's general dismissiveness when it came to Damon is also fascinating. When we're talking about archetypes interacting with the originator, with with the divine archetype, right? And of course, you can get into notions of deicide. Most of these episodes are I'm really impressed by them actually because they come up with a new and inventive way to kill Klaus every other episode, and every other episode they fail entirely. Except for the last two episodes. That's when they succeeded. But every other episode it's like they come up with a very inventive new way to kill Klaus just for them to fail in inventive ways as well. Yeah, a lot of creativity was in this show in the third season. There was a lot of emotion and a lot of passion, and Bonnie was still around, kicking ass, taking names, stealing my heart. I loved her so much. I love that Jeremy is out of her heart entirely. I mean, god damn, I'm so happy that Jeremy took a back seat this season because I still hate this stupid kid. Alaric is dumb. I think his whole thing is dumb. I mean, he fits into my overall reading of it, as a perverted archetype, or as like the punishing, avenging archetype, like who are taking all of these extreme measures of violence out against people who he thinks have corrupted the narrative, and those are the vampires. Those are definitely the original corruptors of the grand narrative. So he fits into my reading. I just think his whole turning vampire hunter, vampire bullshit, vampire. I'm losing my brain. It's on like it just crashed for a second trying to even talk about Alaric. I think he's a dumb character overall. I thought he was a dumb character in season two, and I think he's an even dumber character now. Matt Davis doesn't do a very good job with the role either. He was all right in season one, but oh my God, it's just absurd. But Alaric is one of the luckiest men in the world because he gets to hook up with Corey DeVito, the fucking babe. We got to stop meeting like this, Tori. I'm gonna have to call you a teen drama queen if you keep appearing in everything that I watch. I loved you on Pretty Little Liars, and you were really cool on One Tree Hill, and so far you are ravishing, delightful on The Vampire Diaries. And I believe Corey DeVito was married to Paul Wesley for a time. Now that's an attractive couple right there. I loved seeing Tori DeVito. She's the only thing that kept me from rolling my eyes every time Alaric entered the frame. Alaric was really just absurd near the end. Come on. But Tori DeVito, oh, fucking, oh my God, total babe. But far and away, the most interesting thing about season three is Klaus. I am mystified by Klaus. Like, I thought season two was so brilliant, and season two might be a little bit better than season three, but not by much. Not by much. Season two overall was like a labyrinth of analysis for me. So many different avenues and alleyways for me to kind of navigate and get lost in all the postmodern riddles of it all. Klaus. Klaus is a labyrinth unto himself. Just thinking about that character sends me into a whirlwind of thought, of metaphors and excitement, like genuine excitement. Because that's the thing. You can have all the symbolism and all the metaphors and all the philosophy that you want. If the character doesn't work on that base superficial level, then it's a failure. And Klaus works perfectly, right? This is a character that could make Joss Whedon blush because it is written so well and with such remarkable amount of philosophy. Klaus is one of the coolest characters ever. I think he means an awful lot. I think this whole hybrid business is about him trying to reclaim the narrative, to control it completely, to dominate the narrative, which he sees as having gotten a little bit out of control with all of these half deconstructed, nearly mutilated archetypes walking around, like those of Stefan and Damon and Elena. and Bonnie. Klaus shows up in season 3, fails with his hybrid army, but succeeds in mending all of these halfway deconstructed archetypes of the teen form, the teen show. He heals them, he makes them better, he completes their transformation, since The Vampire Diaries is a show about transformative, horrific abilities. And what teen shows are best at overall um, is transforming the teenage cinematic television character, which in a large way transforms real teenagers. And Klaus shows up, this villain, into a wasteland of half deconstructed, half transformed archetypes, and in season 3 he completes all of their transformations. And they become so well rounded, so fleshed out, so full passion, of blood, of heart, and of soul because of Klaus and his unique interactions with all of them. Challenges Bonnie in fascinating ways. Uh, his involvement forces her to reconnect with her long lost mother, to drop Jeremy and explore her romantic options, transcend the limitations of her archetype. In fact, I'm perfectly fine with calling Klaus Niklaus, the king of the teen vampire, the king of the king of the teen vampire genre. Season 3 was his reign, and my God, his rule was impressive for me. Thought he was a brilliant character through and through. Like Rebecca a lot too, and I still like Elijah. I think Elijah's got a lot of presence. Um, Rebecca is bratty and fun and unpredictable, and I like her. And it looks like Elena's probably a vampire now, because it looks like she died in the car crash, which was the projection of the past upon the present, with her parents dying, and now she dies in the same way. But I believe that Corey DeVito said she tried to help her, and her way of helping is giving vampire blood to patients. But it looks like she died and then came back to life, so she would have to be a vampire now. Which, okay, I guess everyone in the Vampire Diaries is a vampire, except for Matt Donovan, who is still a stupid character, but he's better this season than he was in the others. Much better this season. And when I criticize a character, I'm not criticizing the actor. Zach Rohrig does well with what he's given. I just think the character is boring because I've seen him be very engaging before. He was on the 3rd season of Friday Night Lights as a very troubled rodeo cowboy. He was great on that. So I know he's a good actor. It's just the Elena problem with Catherine being a lot cooler than Elena. Elena's boring, and so is Matt. Maybe Elena will be more interesting now that she's a vampire. Who knows? I don't know. All I know is that seasons 2 and 3 of the Vampire Diaries are like such a high peak. Said Everest earlier. It's Mount Everest. Uh, it would be ridiculous to think that the Vampire Diaries can do it again. I'm open to the possibility, but I also think that that's just fucking, it's not going to happen again. And I also, from what I can tell, this is the last season with Kevin Williamson's involvement, like from beginning to end, or at least they used Kevin's playbook. Um, from what I can tell, he wasn't around for season 4. And there's debate about how much he was involved with season 3, but what we can all agree on is that he was involved with season 3. Um, And you can tell by by the kind of language I've been using to talk about season three. Kevin was there. This is brilliant postmodern television, kind of beyond measure. Season four, I think is going to be we're going to be talking about Julie Plec a lot more. I just can't see the Vampire Diaries being this good consistently. That would be insane. That would be so it'd be unheard of. And you know what? I'm fine with that. I'm fine with seasons two and three being masterful. These seasons are gifts. I fucking loved them so much. Um, God, Klaus is gonna haunt me. I swear to God, he's gonna haunt me because I barely even scraped the surface of what Klaus represents. I've barely even said anything honestly. He's unbelievably fascinating, and I'm gonna spend a long time thinking about that character. Masterpiece. Season three was excellent.